Hello and welcome to the Week 5 edition of the Draft Report. My name is Matt Brown. This is brought to you by DFSReport.com. If you haven't already, please head to your app store of choice and download the Draft Fantasy app. When you do that, use the promo code REPORT, R-E-P-O-R-T, and gain a free $3 entry to a real money contest upon your first deposit. Guys, take advantage of this Draft Fantasy app. No salary caps, none of that stuff like that. So you can add it to your already daily fantasy weekend. I mean, this is a great way to just get more action, super, super fun. And it only takes a few minutes to do one of the snake drafts there. On to the quarterback position here for Week 5. If you're playing in a head-to-head or a three-man over at draft, you're definitely going to want to target Aaron Rodgers. Highest total of the week here in a game against the Cowboys, who have been pretty much lit up by quarterbacks so far this year. And again, they're not named Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, best quarterback in the league by far. Want to take advantage of having him in your head-to-heads or your three-mans. If you can't get to him, I like Dak Prescott in the same game. If you think this game plays out to be high-scoring, especially like Vegas thinks it's going to be, then Dak Prescott's going to have to keep his foot on the gas as well. He's going to have to throw. Fortunately, the cornerbacks there in Green Bay can be had as well. Des Bryant probably in for a big game as well. Couple of other quarterbacks I'll certainly be keeping my eye on this week. Russell Wilson going up against the Rams, Matthew Stafford going up against Carolina, Deshaun Watson at home against Kansas City. Now, listen, he's not going to repeat what he did last week. It's Kansas City defense is for real, but he is at home, and Kansas City does play a lot of man defense. When they play a lot of man defense, they're going to have their backs to him a lot, and that's going to help a rushing quarterback such as him. One of the other guys I'm going to keep an eye on this week as well is Carson Palmer. So Carson Palmer here is going to be taking on the Eagles. Eagles secondary, definitely their weakness as far as everything goes on the defensive side of the ball for them. If you want more proof, they've given up 366 yards to Eli Manning and 347 yards to Phillip Rivers over the last 2 weeks. That is hashtag a lot of yards. One of only two quarterbacks in the league to average over 300 yards per game. Palmer's got about 321 yards per game so far through the air. He is behind only the GOAT, Tom Brady, there in New England. So again, kind of having a sneaky good fantasy season. Even if it doesn't show on the field, we don't really care about that. We want fantasy points. And he's putting up 321 yards a game so far, only behind Tom Brady. Another reason to like Carson Palmer this week, he has the most pass attempts in all the NFL, 17 more actually than the second place guy. So putting it in the air often. They can't run the ball very well since David Johnson went down. So Carson Palmer's having to put that ball up again. Works good for us for fantasy purposes. And finally, he got John Brown back last week. JJ Nelson appears to be healthy. We're still fairly early in the season here. So Larry Fitzgerald is also another guy that usually wears down over the course of the season, but that usually starts mid-season and towards the end as well. So listen, we're still early here. Larry Fitzgerald, a good target for him. Lots of weapons there for Carson Palmer, at least through the air, maybe not in the backfield, but at least through the air and against the Eagles secondary that has just been torched over the last couple of weeks by quarterbacks not having really great years themselves in Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers. So we'll definitely be looking to target Carson Palmer early and often. Taking a look at the running back position, obviously Le'Veon Bell had a huge bounce back week last week. This is the Le'Veon Bell that we've come to know and love from a fantasy perspective, getting all the touches, basically getting all the touches for his whole team, not even just the running back touches, getting all the touches anyway. He had like 65% of the total touches in the entire game for Pittsburgh. Absolutely unbelievable. Love Le'Veon Bell. He has to be at the top of your list, right up there with Zeke. I think Zeke in this high-scoring game against Green Bay is going to have another good week as well. Another guy I'm going to be targeting, though, is Todd Gurley this week. Todd Gurley going up against the Seahawks, and you're going to say, Matt, why in the hell would we go and target a player against this awesome Seahawks defense? Well, let me tell you something about this Seahawks rush defense. They're actually giving up the 6th most rushing yards per game. They're also giving up a pretty juicy 5.1 yards per carry, which we love for a guy like Todd Gurley. Now, let me tell you what Todd Gurley's done so far. Games of 88, 113, and 121 rushing yards over the last 3 weeks. And now, listen, those are great games in and of themselves, but let's go ahead and tack on 48, 36, and 94 receiving yards in those games as well. And that equals up to a massive, massive day for Todd Gurley. Now, the Seattle secondary is only giving up 184 yards per game through the air. So you cannot attack this team through the air. You're going to have to go at them on the ground. Todd Gurley is going to get all the volume there for the Rams going up against the Seahawks. Listen, there's a few other names that you can certainly consider this week. Obviously, I'm never going to tell you not to play Kareem Hunt because he's just a volume monster. He is getting tons of carries out of the backfield, and they're using him in the pass game as well. Charkander Quest gets in there every now and then, but Kareem Hunt is certainly the guy. He's the goal line back. Every time they're ready to score, it's going to go to him, so I can't tell you not to go after Kareem Hunt. One of the guys I'm going to be fading, though, I think this week a little bit, is Melvin Gordon. He's been very inefficient so far this year, and I'm just not really sold on what's going on there in, I guess, LA now, not San Diego, as far as that offense goes. I mean, big name, big guy, had a big year last year, but not really getting it done this year, and I don't really like what's going on there. I think the pass game has a chance to really go off here. Whoever is not getting covered by Janoris Jenkins could certainly have a real big day there for the Chargers, but I'm going to be fading Melvin Gordon. I'm going to let someone else go ahead and draft him. One of the other guys I think that I'm going to be targeting as well, if I'm lower down, if I think that I'm in a place where I'm not going to have a chance to get one of the upper tier guys, and I'm just going to wait on some of these running backs or whatever. Weirdly enough, I kind of like Duke Johnson this week there for the Browns. This guy, he's getting carries every now and then, but they're lining him up in the slot all the time. He's basically their number 2 receiver there right now in a game where, listen, it's supposed to be competitive. It's a pick 'em there against the Jets right now. So I think that Duke Johnson's a very interesting play, especially if you're in a 10-team league and you want to get a little bit sneaky. I think he's certainly a guy that you could consider there as well, kind of like Bilal Powell in that same game. Another guy that, due to the injury of Matt Forte, just getting a lot of the work and getting a lot of the pass work, and certainly a big play guy at there as well. Bilal Powell, certainly a guy I think you could get, maybe take later in your drafts if you're, in one of those situations where you kind of are 10th pick or something like that, and you end up going last in one of the 4th rounds or something like that. That's where I would be looking for him. And the last guy here, listen, I don't love recommending Amir Abdullah in spots because you just never know if the game script goes the other direction, then it's going to just be Theo Riddick catching all the passes. But I expect the Lions to be able to handle the Carolina Panthers. I'm not buying into what we saw from the Panthers last week, a historically bad defense so far for the New England Patriots. So I think that they're going to come back down to earth. I think the Lions are going to have their way. And with that, I think that you could be looking at a pretty good game from Amir Abdullah this week. On to the wide receiver position here. Do I have to tell you that if I like Aaron Rodgers, I like Jordy Nelson? Of course not. I will say it anyway, though. Jordy Nelson, probably the top of my list this week as far as receivers that I'm going to be targeting. You're going to say, well, Matt, what about Antonio Brown? Antonio Brown, listen, playing at home, I understand all that, but listen, Jacksonville is for real when it comes to their cornerback play. The way that you beat this Jacksonville team is on the ground and through the middle of the field. And Antonio Brown's going to have his, don't get me wrong. I just feel like that as far as ceiling games, they're probably as big home favorites here. They get out to a lead and just ride Le'Veon Bell. I don't know if Antonio Brown is in line for a ceiling game here. I think he's has a pretty good floor, but I don't know about his ceiling. Unlike Jordy Nelson, who's in a game that could easily turn into a shootout and could end up having 150 yards and a couple of touchdowns. So Jordy Nelson kind of tops my list there when it comes to wide receivers this week. AJ Green in this game against Buffalo. Listen, Buffalo has been a pretty sneaky team so far. This team is fighting. It looked like they were pre-tanking whenever the season started, and instead they've actually come out and have played really, really well. This defense has actually played well too. The fact of the matter is, though, with AJ Green, Tyler Eifert is going to be out yet again. And when Tyler Eifert is out, they just pepper AJ Green with targets. And plus, with the new offensive coordinator there, he basically wants to do everything that the old offensive coordinator was not. They were not getting enough volume to AJ Green. And since they took over there, he has been getting tons and tons of targets. Love AJ Green this week. Odell Beckham, I think, is in line here for might have a tough game here. Listen, Casey Hayward's no joke. I think that there's a chance that Odell Beckham is going to be locked up with him. Again, same situation with Antonio Brown. He'll still get his. I'm just wondering if there's going to be tough for him to reach his ceiling in a game like this going up against Hayward. Odell Beckham would be a little bit further down the list for me as far as guys I'm going to be targeting. In that game that we're talking about, where we love Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers, I said I like Dak Prescott, so I have to like his top pass catcher in Dez Bryant. Now, Dez has certainly lost a step. If you watch football, you can obviously see that. He's not the same guy that can basically blow away a corner anymore, but he's still big, he's still physical, and he's still able to be a real big threat in the red zone there. Green Bay, again, one of their big weaknesses is on the outside there. I think Dez Bryant, this could be the game for him. We're talking about a guy who's had some pretty tough matchups, been matched up with Patrick Peterson already this year. Had some pretty tough go at it. This is easily going to be his best game of the year, in my opinion. I think you can go for a secondary receiver in that game as well. Randall Cobb, especially if Devontae Adams doesn't play. Randall Cobb could certainly be a guy that you could target in there. If I like Carson Palmer, I have to like some of his pass catchers. I think Larry Fitzgerald's still in it for a pretty good game here. He's got to be a volume catch guy because he's not the big play guy anymore. You're going to need 8, 9, 10 catches out of him in order to get the ceiling type of situation. But I think this plays right into a game where he could get 8, 9, 10 catches, something like that. So Larry Fitzgerald, certainly a guy that I'm going to keep my eye on as well. And another guy I'm going to focus on is Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker against the Titans this week. Listen, they have been bad. Don't get me wrong. The Dolphins have been absolutely horrible. But Devontae Parker's kind of been the one shining spot there. He's averaging 9 targets per game, getting a lot of red zone looks there for them. Titans are giving up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers so far this year. And even as bad as Jay Cutler has been, he has been atrocious. Yes, I've watched the games. You've watched the games. We all know that Jay Cutler has been bad. Devontae Parker still had at least 69 yards in every game. Now, some of that's come in garbage time, but again, garbage time is perfect time for us in fantasy sports. We don't care when the yards or the touchdowns or any of that come, so long as they come. And we talk about what a big part of this offense he's been. He has 25% of the Dolphins' market share so far this year for wide receivers. So listen, Devontae Parker, I think in this game against the Titans is going to have a big game. I think we're almost rooting for Marcus Mariota to play here because we certainly want this to turn into a shootout. We would prefer there be a lot of points, and then that way the Dolphins have to keep their foot on the gas. I don't know if Matt Castle brings that to the table here, but still, with what the Titans have given up so far this year, I still think even if the Dolphins get out to a big lead here, Devontae Parker will be a big part of the reason that they have gotten some of those points against this Titans team. 2 other guys I'm taking a look at this week, T.Y. Hilton, and you're going to say a Colts receiver. Yes, T.Y. Hilton, but it's going up against the San Francisco 49ers. I actually think this will be a pretty fun game for fantasy purposes. I kind of like guys on both sides of the ball here. Pierre Garçon is certainly on my radar as well. The Colts defense has been absolutely atrocious, and both of these teams, I think, could have a sneaky shootout potential in this one. So no one's going to care about the Colts and 49ers from an entertainment perspective, but if you have money on it or if you have a fantasy aspect going, then you'll like this game. And I think this is a game that we're going to be targeting as well. One thing that I'm not going to be doing is going after Alshon Jeffrey this week. He's going to be locked up against Patrick Peterson, who has just been absolutely shutting down number 1 wide receivers so far this year. So Alshon Jeffrey, we'll hold him again on the side for another week here, but we don't want to go there. That is for sure. One other guy that I'm going to be targeting is Golden Tate. Golden Tate against Carolina. Golden Tate's just getting tons of targets. I think he's got at least 8 targets in every single game this year. And at home, he's averaging a couple more targets per game there. Again, I think that it was an aberration last week against the New England Patriots with this Panthers team. I believe that the Lions are going to handle this game, and I think Golden Tate is going to be a great receiver option for you. Okay, guys, that'll do it for this week. Week 5 of the NFL is already here. We're already at the quarter pole. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. Be sure and head over to dfsreport.com. You can take a look at other draft plays for the Draft Fantasy app. Great article written by Nate Weitzer over there, so be sure and click on that. And be sure to take advantage of our offer where if you sign up through the link on our page, you get a free $3 entry upon your first deposit. You get to play in a real money game absolutely free, so be sure and do that. Good luck this week, and we'll see you again for week 6.